Welcome to Space News from the Electric Universe, brought to you by the Thunderbolts Project at thunderbolts.info. In part 1 of this presentation, physicist Wal Thornhill began his analysis of the extraordinary revelations from NASA's Juno mission to the gas giant Jupiter. Like every other recent space mission, what scientists are finding is not what they expected. In the previous episode, Thornhill focused on Jupiter's remarkable electrified atmosphere, an environment that astonished astronomers in 1994 when it was, quote, probed by the natural intruder, the comet Shumeiker-Levy 9. Today, Thornhill will explore the internal composition and dynamics of the gas giant, already a source of major surprise for NASA investigators. Consensus scientific theory states that Jupiter's incredibly powerful magnetic field is powered by a mysterious internal dynamo. But nothing that the Juno mission has discovered supports this hypothesis. As principal investigator Scott Bolton stated, "I didn't expect all the theories to be wrong, but there's motion going on in the planet we did not anticipate. How did Jupiter form, and what is it composed of down to its core?" Wal Thornhill explains the differences between the theoretical predictions of the electric universe and those of standard astronomical theory.
In my first space news about the first science from Juno at Jupiter, I looked at Jupiter's atmosphere, comparing Juno's findings with the earlier Shumeiker-Levy 9 comet fragments encounter with the giant planet. In this second part, I looked deeper inside Jupiter and showed just how different Jupiter looks in the electric universe model compared to the children's tale we have been taught. The comparison is quite confronting. Returning to the teleconference, Scott Bolton, Juno principal investigator, showed a diagram of what Jupiter's interior might look like. It represents what most scientists believed before Juno got there. Scott said, and I paraphrase a little, "We have 3 different techniques to look into Jupiter. One is the gravity field, which sees all the way down to the bottom, where you see an ice rock core and you're looking at 40 million times the atmospheric pressure at sea level on Earth. We have a magnetic field experiment that looks into that bluish region that's called metallic hydrogen, and that's where the hydrogen is squeezed so much and the temperature is such that it's like a liquid metallic hydrogen, and we believe somewhere in there, maybe the magnetic field gets created, or maybe above that where there's enough charged particles. But the magnetic field penetrates into that. The upper meteorological layer is the atmosphere, which is actually quite deep. We've never seen that before Juno's microwave radiometer, so we have these 3 ways to look into Jupiter. The top part is done with the microwaves, the middle part is done with the magnetic field, and then the gravity looks all the way down to the center. The electric universe model doesn't accept the story of how Jupiter was formed, and it questions 2 of the 3 ways used to look inside Jupiter. To put it bluntly, settled science doesn't understand how stars and planets are formed and has no explanation for the origin of magnetism or gravity. So everything below Jupiter's atmosphere will be misinterpreted. The electric universe has the outstanding and crucial advantage of a real physical model of magnetism and gravity. It's based on a repeated pattern of the orbiting electrical structure of atoms, applied to the subatomic particles within each atom. It's a simple electrical model that could be taught in primary school and demonstrated with magnets. So let's look at gravity. It will be difficult for those who think settled science has explained gravity to unlearn the misleading model of a rubber sheet warped by heavy objects placed upon it. The rubber sheet is a fanciful 2-dimensional representation of 3-dimensional space. Nothing physically exists in 2 dimensions. Yet the Sun and Earth are shown in 3 dimensions as spheres. They should be shown as circles on the sheet, but that would destroy the illusion. Unrealistic geometry can never explain gravity. Conceptually, the rubber sheet would be flat unless gravity was exerting a force downward on objects from underneath the sheet. That's using gravity to explain gravity. But the silliest feature of Einstein's theory is that his gravity is not a force at all. Objects placed on the rubber sheet have no reason to move anywhere. Think about it. So how does the electric universe explain gravity? Uncommon sense suggests the origin of gravity is to be found in the particles that make up a celestial body. So the electric universe proposes both the proton and the electron have internal structure like the atom, and are composed of smaller charged particles in orbit. The proton and electron are like tiny atoms but with a net charge, positive and negative respectively. And like atoms, the protons and electrons will distort in an electric field and align with their neighbours like tiny magnets to form daisy-chained electric dipoles. That's the origin of gravity inside a weighty body. It explains the puzzling extreme weakness of gravity, since it originates almost entirely in the heavy atomic nuclei, which are electrically shielded inside atoms. This model also explains the origin of the much stronger magnetic force, where the electron or proton is free to be accelerated in an unshielded electric field. The consequences of the electric universe model of electrogravity are profound for Jupiter and may explain the unexpected results from Juno. As we know, gravity can't be shielded, so the heavy positively charged nucleus in each atom is displaced radially towards the centre of Jupiter. This means that atoms to some depth in Jupiter will have a positive electric pole facing the centre of the planet and a negative electric pole facing outwards to the rest of the universe. Jupiter appears as a negative gravitational sphere to the rest of the universe. Gravity throughout the universe is a repulsive force. However, the Juno spacecraft is orbiting within Jupiter's gravitational sphere of influence and has an induced gravitational dipole, which attracts the spacecraft like an iron filing to a magnet. That's the effect we experience on Earth and call gravity. Scientists for centuries have assumed that they can simply extrapolate our experience of attraction to the Earth throughout the universe, despite the fact that galaxies don't move in support of this belief. So the inside of Jupiter is unlike anything ever contemplated by Newtonian physics. Jupiter's gravity is almost 2.5 times stronger than that of the Earth. So internally, at some depth, there will be a strong repulsive force due to the positive gravitational poles facing inwards, which can hold a spherical shell of matter stably in place. Jupiter is hollow and doesn't have a core of liquid metallic hydrogen. Of course, the same argument for hollowness holds for the Earth and all other celestial bodies, so it's significant that a number of leading scholars in the past have considered this possibility. Today, the subject is considered crackpot and taboo by settled science. But science generally advances through paradigm shifts initiated by individuals who are not subject to science's taboos, the small voice at the back of the crowd crying, "The emperors have no clothes." A recent independent feasibility study by a South African, Jan Lamprecht, into the seismology expected of a hollow Earth, found that it fits the detailed observations of seismology without all of the ad hoc assumptions and mysteries of the standard model of the Earth, involving Newton's law and an inner and outer core. Lamprecht asks, is there anything in seismology which could be a misinterpretation of a hollow cavity? The answer is yes. The Earth's outer core could easily be a cavity. He argues the Earth is cool and brittle deep down to a depth of 700 kilometres because many deep quakes have been recorded at that depth. In the standard Earth model, the rocks should be hot, dense and plastic beyond a depth of 150 kilometres and incapable of generating earthquakes. What no scientist on Earth is willing to accept is that maybe gravity doesn't work in the way they think it does, says Lamprecht. An even more compelling argument for a hollow Earth is that the inner surface has features more pronounced seismically than those at the surface. Of course, planetary scientists have an immediate objection to a hollow Earth because, based on its gravitational mass, the Earth theoretically must have a dense core. But this exposes another serious problem in basic physics: the confusion of mass, which is a property of matter, with the quantity of matter. Unbelievable as it may seem, physics has no definition of mass in terms of matter, and because both words begin with the letter M does not make them mathematically equivalent, because we know from E equals mc squared that mass is an energetic variable, while the amount of matter remains fixed. Electrogravity involves a radial electric field in the Earth's matter, which is a form of stored energy, like a capacitor. Changing the electric charge on the Earth can change the Earth's mass and gravity. This has been shown by Earth's rotational glitches when hit by massive storms of charged particles from the Sun. It also means that it is impossible to figure out the composition of the Earth or Jupiter or any other celestial body by simply measuring its gravity and applying an invalid model of their interiors. Apollo 12 placed the first seismometer on another world. On the 20th of November 1969, the Apollo 12 lunar module was sent crashing into the moon's surface to ensure some kind of seismic result, because it was thought the moon should be seismically dead. The moon's behaviour was totally unexpected. It rang like a bell for an hour. Scientists were stunned at the time. How often do we hear this? The trace shown here was recorded by the seismometers left behind on the surface. The simplest interpretation suggests the moon is hollow. Of course, this was beyond belief, so the Earth model was applied and massaged to appear to accommodate this stunning failure of expectations. Since then, Apollo seismic observations discovered that the moon is seismically active with more than 13,000 seismic events recorded. The most frequently observed are deep moonquakes at 800 to 1,200 kilometres depth in the moon. Though intensive studies have been carried out for decades, why and how deep moonquakes occur are remaining mysteries, says one expert. That sounds familiar.
For continuous updates on space news from the electric universe, stay tuned to thunderbolts.info.